This video is brought to you by PantherGaming.com. Go to the link in the description below. Use the promo code LateNight, no spaces, to get 10% off of any order. So college is starting back up again for everybody. Unfortunately, because of that, I missed yesterday's Q&A. Hopefully I won't do that again in the future. But also, I just wanted to let you all know that I am working on a new video in private. Hopefully I'll have it up by this week, but no promises. Also, later this week, I do want to do a live stream for all of you guys. So the rules to the Q&A are very simple. For those of you just joining us, leave your Halo-related questions in the comments section below. They will be randomly picked, and then hopefully they'll be answered on next week's show. And in order to make sure that everybody can get their questions answered, because I know sometimes I don't get around to everybody's question, well, actually most times, what's going to happen actually is, due to popular suggestion, I'm going to try to open up a Ask FM thing. I have no idea what that is, to be honest, because I live under a rock. And also, I'm thinking of doing a late night gaming subreddit where people can ask their questions whenever they want, and hopefully I can answer them there. So the first question comes from Connor Quester, who says, Q&A, do you think that a prophet or two could return to lead the remaining Covenant factions, like the Prophet of Disdain or the Prophet of Candor? So, in my opinion, when it comes to the prophets and stuff, I mean, right now, in the lore, most of the prophets are kind of like off in hiding and stuff, like after Truth was killed by the Arbiter. They're kind of being hunted down because, well, they were full of shit, to be frank, and so a lot of members of the Covenant are pissed that they were lied to. In terms of if I think the prophets are going to return, personally, I don't know, and I don't want to invest myself in like theories and stuff, because right now the current kind of structure of Halo storytelling is so unstable. Like, literally anything can happen at any time. 343 has a lot of ideas, but they never go through with their ideas, which is starting to become increasingly frustrating. Like how recently in Tales from Slipspace, they completely kind of got rid of the flood infection form that was on the Spirit of Fire. If you guys remember from years ago, they kind of teased us. You saw a little infection form scurrying around. Well, now they dealt with it in like a spin-off comic that nobody will read, so ultimately it was of no consequence. Like, holding on to that idea of like, ooh, what could that mean, for an entire year, and it's like, and they stopped it. The end. Like, that's basically it. Like, no consequence or anything, so I don't want to invest myself in any ideas, because, to be frank, any ideas or seeds that they sowed, like, where, like, oh, but in Halo 5 they say this, so maybe this could lead to that, like, no, it doesn't matter. They're probably gonna write it off in some spin-off comic or Waypoint post. Like, they don't stick with any ideas that they start, so I don't want to say for certain that, like, maybe this will happen, because, to be frank, literally anything could happen, which, that I don't want to think like that. But until 343 starts like setting a foundation and then sticking with it without backing up and like, okay, clean it up in like a spin-off comic, we're gonna try again, like, until they actually stick with ideas, I don't want to formulate any theories about the future. That being said, though, if the prophets were to return, how I would like to see it is kind of like, okay, so the prophets are very sleazy, they're very manipulative, so it always made me think that, like, the prophets, like, they could probably find their way in the galaxy if they wanted to, because they're words, they're so good with them. You know, if you were to lock yourself in a room with a prophet, it could probably find a way to, like, manipulate you just talking to it, and it could, like, make you do anything you wanted, because they're so clever, and they're so, like, good at reading and finding your little weaknesses and stuff, and manipulating you. So I'd kind of like it if maybe in the future, as a reoccurring character, we see a prophet that, like, he's doing good for himself. Like, he had a lot of riches stowed away on some kind of planet, and after the Covenant fell at the end of Halo 3, he's like, oh, fuck, and he, like, bolted and, like, you know, dug up a little treasure chest full of, like, money that he's been hiding. And when a couple, like, hunters as in, like, parties of different Covenant species finally catch up with him, he's like, wait, don't kill me. Okay, I've got an idea. If you guys work for me, I will pay you. I will pay you. We'll like start a little thing, you see, and we'll earn a lot of money, and I'll be able to keep paying you, and I'll pay you a lot of money. And basically this prophet starts almost like a private military, and like, you know, he does all sorts of illegal things, like black market stuff, like selling supplies to different, like whoever has the most money. And this prophet can be like a reoccurring character who's just kind of like, yeah, he doesn't really do much. He just kind of like sells things, goods to whoever has the most amount of money and stuff. And he's just kind of like this, you know, this character. He's just a prophet who doesn't really cause trouble. He has a lot of money. He has his own little private army. And who knows, maybe in the future there can be some kind of like big galaxy spanning threat or whatever. And it's like, oh my gosh, now everybody, like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Like all these different factions have to come together to stop it. And it's like even him, it's like the universe, like the galaxy's a threat. And he's like, I'll help you, but for the right price. And then you're like fighting with his private military and stuff. And like all the different species in his private military, all they care about is money. Like they, like that could be cool. It's like some kind of like little spin-off idea. But you know, those are just like, that's just my thoughts. So the next question comes from David Evans, who says, Q&A, do you think there will be any dramatic nerfs or buffs in the near future for Halo? I just got Halo 5 yesterday, and it is downloading on my Xbox One now, so I can't compare 5 to 4 as of the time I make this comment. So you don't want to come to me for like extensive multiplayer knowledge. I consider myself like pretty good at Halo. There are channels like Luke the Notable, I Spiteful, where it's like those guys are really good at Halo. I'm not going to be like at their level. You know, I can get my killing sprees and stuff like. And I've heard grumblings from the esports community that automatics are becoming a problem in matchmaking, and I know that the common complaint right now is that the assault rifle is way too powerful for its own good. I know that before Halo 5 release, since the beta, they upped its magazine count. You know, traditionally the assault rifle has always been like, well, I guess after Halo 3, it's always been 32 rounds per magazine, and Halo 5 is like the first game where they actually kind of like upped the magazine. Like, it's not as much as CE's magazine, but now the assault rifle's at 36 rounds per mag. So I'm wondering if maybe they're going to drop 4 bullets from the magazine and bring it back down to 32 rounds per mag. I can only assume the reason why they had it at 36 was just to make it a little bit easier to use for noobs to the Halo series, but you know, right now it's becoming a bit of a problem according to the esports community. So the next question comes from 151 Guiding Light, who says, Halo Q&A. Do you think Project Scorpio is going to isolate the Halo community or build it? Obviously, there is a bit of a communication barrier between casual players and the developers in most games. I wish there was a feedback menu built into Halo. What are your thoughts on this? Love the content. If you guys don't know what Project Scorpio is, it's essentially just a more powerful Xbox One that's going to be releasing this Christmas, I actually think, if I remember right. Really no difference. It's just going to be more powerful. And I think what you mean by isolating is, will Scorpio players be able to play with regular Xbox One players? And yeah, they will be able to. The only difference is people on the Scorpio they will have prettier visuals on their screen. So it won't isolate anybody. And there are a lot of barriers set up between like players and developers. But when it comes to the Halo series, 343, I know that it seems like they aren't listening, but they are listening, surprisingly. Now, unfortunately, sometimes there are some things that they straight up can't answer yes or no, or maybe, like when you'll like tweet at somebody like Sketch or something, who is the community manager for 343, you'll say like, hey, can we like see a Falcon in the future? And he just won't answer. It's like, what do you want him to say? Like, he can't say yes, because then that will be spoiling that, oh, hey, maybe they're bringing a Falcon back. He can't say no, because that'll just make people angry. And he can't say maybe, because he doesn't want to give people false hope. So unfortunately, there are some things that he just isn't allowed to say, and the same goes for all of 343. They don't want to instill false hope in the community, and they also don't want to piss them off, and they don't want to spoil surprises that they've got cooked up. I do think, though, that going forward, things are going to be a bit more organized. Sketch already, as a community manager, I think has been fantastic at responding to people's complaints and stuff and answering to the best of his abilities without like giving away too much or anything. I feel like he's been like just pretty good in my opinion as a community manager. I'm really enjoying the communication with him. I do think what could help going into the future is I would like some kind of like monthly survey or something in future Halo games where it's like every month on the dashboard when you open it up, you know, you'll get your like Warzone Mythic, like Warzone Firefight Mythic screen, you know, like your little daily notifications whenever you boot up Halo 5. I'd like something like that, but every month it'll have like a random survey question where it's like, what's your opinion on bigger, less linear, open level design? And there'll be like, press B if you really like those, press A if you like, yeah, they're good, they're okay, and Y if it's like, no. You know, just stuff like that. Every month they'll have like little survey questions that they can answer, that they can ask the community and we can answer. I hope that answers your question. We are going to answer a question from Ketchup Raptor who says, Q&A, what's your opinion on how the sound effects were changed in Halo 4? In Halo 3 and prior games, every weapon had a distinct sound to differentiate between weapons. If an enemy was using the carbine, BOW! I could hear it. That has been lost since Halo 4 and sadly went back to bite Halo 2 Anniversary in the butt by giving it its inferior sound effects. Go listen to the sound effects for the Beam Rifle, Covenant Carbine, Plasma Rifle, replaced by Storm Rifle, and Needler from Halos 1 through 3. Now listen to the sound effects for those weapons in Halo 4 and 5. Notice something? The Halo 4 and 5 sound effects all sound like a generic pew. I know you hate the term generic. The pew sounds are basically unrecognizable from each other, and you can't easily distinguish what what weapon an enemy is using when you can't see them. What are your thoughts on this? I find it really hard to play Halo 5 because of it. Both the online and the single player just irk me. So when it comes to the quality of 343 sound effects, I have a lot of interesting opinions about it that I will be doing a video on. Yeah, my sound design videos, there will be more coming in the future. I'm working on a couple. But when it comes to the argument of, like, Bungie's Covenant stuff sounded very unique, and 343s are just all pew-pew, that's actually an argument that I surprisingly disagree with, because Bungie, their sound effects are literally pew-pew when it comes to the Covenant stuff, like the laser sound, like pew-pew-pew-pew-pew, like, of the plasma pistol, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. That's not a bad thing to say, because Bungie, that's exactly what they were going for. They wanted the Covenant's little plasma weapons to sound like what you'd think a laser gun, like a generic alien laser gun would sound like. The little plasma pistol, like that sounds like a classic sci-fi ray gun in terms of its sound effects. And the thing is, when it comes to those sounds, Bungie never really changed them. They would always kind of increase the quality a little bit, but starting with Halo CE all the way to Reach, they kept that sound effect for the Covenant weapons. And it's a sound effect that people grew up listening to. And when it came to Halo 4, they completely redesigned everything. They made things sound radically different, and I think that was a problem. There was one interview, one little thing, it was a Vidoc, I think, for Halo 4, where the sound designer, his name escapes me, he mentioned that they only kept about 5% of Bungie's sound effects, and the rest were completely redone from the ground up. And with Halo 5, nothing was kept. Like, it's all new sound effects and stuff, and I think that's a no-no. But with Halo 4, it's like, what do you mean by 5%? That could mean literally everything. That's too vague. Do you mean you kept parts of certain sound effects or whatever? Because in Halo 4, with the energy shield recharge, it's different in Halo 4, but you can hear that the old sound effect for the energy shield recharge, they mixed it into their new sound effect. So you can hear a little bit of the classic stuff in there, but with Halo 5, everything's completely new, and I think that that's a problem. With these sound effects, you can't just... We're gonna make it different now. It's like, no, like that's... You want to innovate the sounds, not just change them. Halo 2 Anniversary, I actually really like a lot of the sound effects in Halo 2 Anniversary. Surprisingly, the Carbine, I much prefer the sound effects for the Carbine in Halo 2 Anniversary. The Carbine, I've always felt, is a very weak sounding gun, especially in Bungie's games. Like when you play with like good bass and stuff, there's rarely like a power to the sound of the Covenant. And so when I play Halo 2 Anniversary online and stuff, I like that now there's like a bass under the like pew pew, like for the carbine. I like that they added a little bit more power to the sound effect of it. That being said, I do also think with the sound effects for 343's Halo games, they seem, now this is just a theory, but it feels like they are designing a lot of these sound effects with very good quality headsets, like gaming headsets in mind, and not really thinking about like just kind of like your average TV speaker, because a lot of the sound effects don't translate well over speakers in 343's games. This is actually an experiment that I've been working on over the last couple of weeks. I talked to a guy over Skype who's kind of like dabbling in sound design. He's hopefully that'll become a profession of his, but he recommended that I get some really good quality headphones and like just play some of the newer Halo games with these headphones, listening to those exclusively, like the sound effects through the headphones exclusively, then switch over to like just an average TV speaker. And there is a big difference, more so than most games, and it's a little bit frustrating because there are some sound effects in 343's games that I appreciate more now because I was able to listen to them with these really good gaming headsets, and it's like, oh my gosh, like there's a lot of detail to this sound effect that I never picked up on listening to it just through the TV or with my kind of like crappy headsets that I used to wear. So I'm going to be doing a video on it, like about like 343 sound design and stuff. But that being said, that does kind of bring up an interesting argument where it's like, maybe the problem is like that there's too much detail in it. Like I shouldn't have to get a really good gaming headset to fully appreciate a lot of these sound effects. Like a lot of these sound effects, they should just sound good on their own regardless of what you're using. And I do think in the future 343 needs to kind of like tone it down with like the going crazy. Like if you listen to the Magnum sound effect with really good quality headsets, just the Halo 5 Magnum, listening to the firing sound effect for it, it's a very detailed sound effect. There are a lot of different layers to it. Same with the rocket launcher. But the problem is, like, does it need to be? Like the Magnum, I don't need to hear like the charging handle screeching along the base of the handgun as it's firing and the casing being ejected and like the firing mechanism going off and like hearing all these gears and servos inside as it's firing. Like, just give me a boom. Like, you know, it's just a little explosion that's propelling a piece of metal towards the enemy. Like, it doesn't need to be this complex orchestra, which, you know, in reality, firing a weapon is just like a complex orchestra of all these different mechanical parts, but sometimes when it comes to good sound effect, all you need to do is make the thing sound like what people think it sounds like, which Bungie actually did a very good job with. A lot of their sound effects were very simple, to the point, you knew what they were. Like the rocket launcher, the whoosh, when you fire a rocket, look, got it, you know, something just left a little tube, like a little rocket, you can hear the, you know, of the rocket as it's firing out, the hissing of the fire behind it. Like, just simplify things. It doesn't need to be so crazy. And also, respect the original sound effects. You're allowed to change and experiment, but it has to be within the boundaries of innovation, not just changing things because you want to. Like, over the course of multiple games and stuff, that sound effect may change because they're adding and innovating, but it's important that the change is gradual over time, not just one game it sounds like this, the next it sounds radically different. But those are just my thoughts on that subject. So we're going to answer a question from Mr. Macho, who says, Q&A. What you seem to hate about Halo 5 seems to be the reason why I like it. Clambering, smart scoping, hovering, etc. I think the only way 343 can satisfy the both of us is by giving us a classic-ish style playlist and the current style playlist in Halo 6. I think that would help a lot. What do you think? So this is actually a question that I'm starting to get a lot of, and I know I've seen a lot of complaints of people like, you gotta answer different questions. Well, the thing is, all these questions are randomly selected, so what I'm going to start doing in the future is if I get questions that I've been answering a lot of recently, I'm going to spin the thing again and see if I can find another question. And if anybody is answering, you know, or asking in the comment section a question that maybe they didn't realize that I've answered already, people can probably direct them to a video where I have answered that question. So I've actually answered in the past that I would like a classic style playlist for people who prefer the old style of play, because I do think it's important that 343 respects and honors the Halo veterans, the people who have been around since the beginning. It's not really fair to, because the thing is, I've also heard people say well, if you don't like the new gameplay, just don't play it. And it's that's a lazy dismissal of people's real gripes, because I don't want to not play Halo. I really like Halo, and a lot of people really like Halo. And what they'd like is they'd like Halo to, be Halo. And for a lot of people, Halo 5 went a little bit too far in a lot of departments. And that I can definitely agree with. The smart scoping, I don't like it. On automatic weapons and stuff, I think that's not the point of Halo in terms of its gameplay. I think there are also just a few mechanics that do not work within Halo's sandbox. They just don't work as ideas. That being said, I do think that there are a few ideas that people are way too hard on, like Sprint. I've seen Sprint's the death of Halo, and so no, Sprint will never work, and it's I disagree, because Sprint works really well in Halo 5, in my opinion. I do understand that it's just people have different opinions. Ultimately, if you're going to introduce new gameplay mechanics and stuff, maybe if you do want to experiment, do it in a spin-off game, like with ODST. ODST experimented with maybe let's have a hub world that you can explore. Let's have this non-linear weird story that we're doing. Do that in a spin-off game. Don't do it in the mainline Halo games. And if that spin-off game, hey, this is pretty good, people like this, then you can adopt it into the mainline Halo games. For the mainline Halo games, I think it's important to play it safe, understand what it is that people really want. People want Halo for X, Y, and Z. Just stick with X, Y, and Z. If you need to experiment, do it in the spin-off games, so that, the mainline Halo games don't suffer because of, you wanting to just, try something different, if that makes any sense. Ultimately, remember, it's just my opinion and stuff, but going into the future, I want them to experiment a little bit more in spin-off games and keep the mainline series a little bit less wow, it's going to be different every single game. It's no, stick with what works. Look at Halo 5's campaign. It did not stick with what works, and it suffered because of that. And so we are going to close this Q&A off with a question from Johnster4, who says, Halo Q&A. Do you think Microsoft will release the Bungie Halo titles for Windows 10? I feel like it would be a disappointment if they didn't. At most, release the MCC and Halo 5 campaign, or at least make the Halo 3 port or Anniversary Edition on PC, but instead jump to Halo 6 expecting PC gamers to know what's going on and who the new characters are, yet only got to play Halo 1 and 2. I would personally like it, if I were the head of Microsoft, what I would do is, alright, so Halo 2 and Halo CE, they're PC games. You can play them on the PC. They should have Windows Classics or something, and it's on the Windows Store, and it's you can get Halo 5 or Halo CE and Halo 2 separately for $5 each, and they're branded as Windows Classics or something, and then over the course of many years, they can add more classics, Windows Classics, to this line in the Windows 10 store on PC. And when it comes to the games that have not been released, ultimately, okay, so here's the problem. Microsoft wants to do their universal, play anywhere thing for Windows, right? Well, currently on the Xbox One, there's the Master Chief Collection. So when it comes to the Master Chief Collection, if you were to release the original, the 4 Halo games in the mainline series on PC, on Windows 10, it's how would the Play Anywhere system work? Because right now, Microsoft has had a line, so far all of their exclusives that they've been releasing and stuff have been Play Anywhere titles, and this is a streak that they want to keep up, because they're trying to market we're all about PC gamers, Play Anywhere. That's something that they're really trying to hammer home. So if now they suddenly broke their little streak, and they're well, I mean, Play Anywhere except for these 4 games, it would look bad to the public. It would look they're already going back on their Play Anywhere plan, even though, the public's stupid. They won't know, but they're, it's contrived, I don't want to get into it and stuff and ramble forever, but right now it's very tough. The best bet, in my opinion, what they should do is the Master Chief Collection. needs to be patched. Like, this isn't this isn't like, I think that they should I mean, no, like, on the Xbox One, you can buy it. You can buy a malfunctioning product that they are still selling, and it doesn't work, and they're charging money for it. And so it's like, all right, well, if you're not going to fix it, you should take it down and stop trying to sell it to people, because it does not work. Like, Halo 4, the campaign has its button prompts mislabeled. The Didact QuickTime event, it says press RT to fire machine gun instead of press LT to use grenade. Like, for people who have never played Halo 4 before, they will not be able to beat the Didact, because they're refusing to fix the MCC. So, like, no, you're not fixing the game, so take it down and stop trying to sell it. Like, okay, you want to sell it? Well, then you better fix the game. Like, those are just my opinions. But what I think should happen is they should do an extensive, heavy patch for the Master Chief Collection, and it should be retitled. Like, it should be, they should retitle it, like, rebrand it or whatever, change the name on the marketplace, create a whole, like, marketing thing for it where it's like, it's being, like, redone and stuff. So this massive patch for the MCC comes out, retitles it something different, maybe even, like, adds, like, something else to it or whatever, like, called, you know, maybe they'll add the Reach campaign or whatever, like, remastered, and call it something new, call it something completely different, like Halo, the Definitive Collection or whatever. Alright, now it's rebranded, and it's also on PC now, so for people who own Halo, the Definitive Collection on Xbox One can also now play Halo, the Definitive Collection on PC, and, like, vice versa. Like, ultimately, fix it and change the name of it so that people don't associate it with the disastrous MCC that, like, PC gamers have probably heard of. Like, that's just what I would do. Ultimately, what's going to happen, I don't know, but I do think that the mainline Halo games, they do need to be released and be accessible for PC gamers, because like you said, it's not going to make sense for a lot of PC gamers just jumping into Halo 6 on PC whenever that launches. Like, oh, okay, the last Halo game I played was Halo 2, now I can play Halo 6's campaign. Okay, just like you said, but, you know, those are just my thoughts. So that wraps up this week's Q&A, guys. Thank you so much for answering all of your questions. This week I will be doing some kind of Ask FM, also a late night gaming subreddit I'm going to start, so you guys can ask questions whenever you want, and I can answer them for you, like, so I don't feel, like, kind of pressured, like, panicked, because, oh my god, I'm being asked so many questions and I can't answer them all and make the video short at the same time. But, you know, so ask your questions away, guys, in the comment section below, and hopefully stay tuned for what I have in the future. I'll see you guys next time.